opposite of irrational. It's the most rational fear in the world. Racism is bad, period. How could you say that the fear of Islam is irrational? Tens of thousands of deadly rockets. Why are they speaking about this conflict at all? Don't believe what you see.
What's Islamophobia?
It's a made-up term. It doesn't exist. What does phobia mean? Again, this isn't my opinion. What does phobia? Open a dictionary. What does phobia mean? Phobia means an irrational fear of something. 10 to 15% of 1.8 billion Muslims in the world are radicalized. That's 150 to 300 million people. So to fear 150 to 300 million people who are dedicated to the destruction of Western civilization is irrational? That is the opposite of irrational. It's the most rational fear in the world. Have you opened the Quran? The Quran is full of verses calling for the murder of infidels worldwide. Anybody who's not a Muslim should be killed. How is the fear of that religion like that irrational? It is the most rational thing in the world. Now, are there innocent Muslims who are being discriminated against? Of course there are. And that should be stopped at all costs. Racism is bad, period. But to say that the fear of Islam, a religion that is being used right now, every single terrorist attack, the top 20 biggest terrorist organizations in the world are all Muslim. Every single terrorist attack in the history of the world conducted by a radical Islamist was accompanied by the yell of Wallah Akbar, Allah Akbar, right? God, Allah is great. So this is all done in the name of Islam. So if, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of terrorist attacks were perpetrated by people doing it in the name of Islam, how could you say that the fear of Islam is irrational? So Islamophobia is a made-up term made up by the West. Why is there no Jew phobia? Why is there no Christian phobia? It's a made-up term made up by, the woke mentality of the West, and it's ridiculous because there's nothing irrational about the fear of Islam.
What's Tel Aviv like? I was discussing right now, my wife and I were going on vacation and all that, and I've always heard, I have friends and family who have been to Israel in the past, and you'll go on Google and you'll say, like, if I want to travel to Israel, I want to go to Tel Aviv, I want to go visit. They're like, well, not the time, don't go, conflict and everything. But then I see videos of Michael Rappaport walking down the street and just going like, this is fantastic and it's great and apparently it's beautiful. I don't know much about Israel. I've never been. I'd love to go one day.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful country, number one. Number two, everything I'm going to say right now doesn't negate the fact that we are in a war. There are people dying. There are rockets. All that exists. That's not made up. It's real. But we know, and I know that the mechanism we call media, whether it's legacy media or social media, is fundamentally broken. Why do I say that? Because it does not facilitate nuance and it does not facilitate truth, because truth doesn't get clicks. What gets clicks is hysteria and poison and lies. And so they like to, paint this, as if like, we're in a constant war zone and we can't walk an inch in Israel because there are rockets falling on our head. I just came back from Tel Aviv 2 hours ago. I'm sitting in a cafe. There was not not an empty seat in the entire cafe. Look around. There's grass, beautiful trees, beautiful. I sit with it. And I sat with two people who were here from the States visiting. And I asked them both the same question. Do you feel unsafe here? And they both said the same thing, independent of each other. They said, I feel infinitely safer here than I feel where I live. London, New York. So,
Montreal.
Yeah. So, I mean, you come to Israel, you would never even know you're in a war zone. Again, yes. Have I been woken up middle of the night with sirens that I had to run to the security room, what we call the bomb shelter? Yes. Okay. So I sit there, and we have the Iron Dome and I hear, detonated rockets and great. And, some shrapnel falls somewhere and, yes, that's true. Those things have happened and they do happen. But Israel is absolutely, by the way, I'm not even talking anecdotally. Forget what I experienced today in Tel Aviv. The numbers don't lie. There has never been, this is a fact, there has never been a 75-year period in the history of the Jewish people in which so few Jews have been killed. I just want to repeat that for 1 second. 75 years since the establishment of the State of Israel. There has never been a safer 75 years for the Jewish people in the world. There was the pogroms, the Holocaust, the Spanish Inquisition. The list is very, very long. So despite all the loss, despite all the mourning, I lost my brother. No one has to lecture me. I get it. Despite all of that, Israel is a beautiful country. Israel is a safe country. And again, this is data. I mean, without even talking about God and religion, right? I mean, we're talking about whatever. Tens of thousands of deadly rockets, drones, ballistic missiles fired into Israel. And we're talking, double-digit casualties, which is horrible. Every person that dies is an entire world. But, we're talking, 60 people killed from these rockets in the last year and a half? Tens of thousands of rockets. So, let's put things in perspective here. Israel's safe. Israel's beautiful. We are in a war zone. This war will end soon. We will come out victorious. But you want to go on vacation? Dude, I give you my word. You come to Tel Aviv, you will not regret it for a second. You will absolutely have the time of your life. I'm telling you, I just came from Tel Aviv, man. I'm meeting people here, visiting from all around the world. They all say the same thing. I feel so much safer here than anywhere else. It's an amazing country.
I hope we can make that happen. I'd love to come and visit. Um, with the rise of Islamist influence in the West, what viable solutions do you see right now?
To solve a problem, the first thing you need to do is identify the problem and name the problem. Call a spade, all right? Anybody who's yelling Islamophobia or saying like, oh, let's bring in illegal migrants, and they're either naive or very, very, very stupid or very evil. One of those. Because it's not even like hypothetical anymore. We're seeing what these illegal Middle Eastern migrants are doing throughout the West. They looted an Apple store. Like, this is anarchy, right? So let's not stick our head in the sand. And we're not going to solve this problem by ignoring it. Radical Islam is a global cancer, and it's spreading fast. And the reason it's spreading fast is because we refuse to take chemotherapy. We refuse to deal with the problem because it's not woke. No, it was driven by a radical Islamist who had a goal of killing as many Westerners as possible, but we're afraid to say it because it's not woke. So first of all, we need to identify the problem. The problem is radical Islam. And the goal of radical Islam, its own declared, stated goal, is to take over the West. And then we need to deal with it. How we deal with it, I don't have the right answers because we're talking about a wildfire that's completely out of control at this point. But whether it's deporting, mass deporting, whether it's people that come into the country have to declare that they are loyal to Western, ideals, which wouldn't solve the problem because there's an ideal in Islam to actually lie in order to accomplish things. But I'll tell you one thing. We are not going to solve this problem by ignoring it. And right now what we're doing is we're ignoring it. Not only are we ignoring it, but we're penalizing the people that aren't ignoring it. If I, God forbid, say something about radical Islam, I'm an Islamophobe. Well, how are we ever going to solve this problem? Because radical Islam is spreading pretty fast in the Western world. So the first things first, let's acknowledge it, let's name it, let's identify it, and then let's talk about how to solve it.
Big question. Where are the feminists? What is the state of women's rights in Islam?
Where are they? Where are these women's rights organizations? Why are they not speaking about what happened on October 7th? We have HD footage of Jewish women being raped. This isn't an opinion. They're like, oh, it didn't happen. And what does Hamas say? It was the proudest day of our history. We're going to do it over and over again. The West says they didn't do it. Hamas says, yes, we did. No, it didn't happen. Yes, it did. We have HD footage. It's like unbelievable, right? So where are these feminists? Why are they not yelling about sexual crimes against Jews? No, I don't know where they are. Again, I want to be very clear. Like, I'm the first to promote, equality for women, and I promote women all the time in the business sector. These feminist organizations, women's rights organizations, if they pick and choose, when they fight for women's rights and when they don't, then they're no longer a women's rights organizations, and now they're a political organization, and they're pretty clear on their stance on Israel versus the rest of the world. So where are they? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. Why are they only speaking about, Gaza? Why are they only speaking about one side of this conflict? Why are they speaking about this conflict at all? Think about it. Why did the UN passed, I think, 2 resolutions, 2, if I'm not mistaken, it might be 3 or 4, against the entire world combined in 2024, and 17 against Israel. Do you understand? Like, no matter how evil you want to paint Israel, you can't tell me that we're more evil than Iran or China or Syria, and yet no resolutions against them. 17 resolutions against Israel. It's ridiculous. And anybody with a brain in their head understands that it's ridiculous. The only people that don't want to see it and recognize it are people that, again, they want to stick their head in the sand or, are crazy woke and just, are not guided by critical thinking. And that's a real problem, by the way, in our generation. We're telling Gen Z to not use critical thinking. If I'm looking at someone and it's a man and that person says, I'm not a man, I'm a cat, and I'm told you have to call him a cat, what I'm basically told is don't use your brain. Don't use critical thinking. Don't believe what you see. Now, when it comes to pronouns, big deal. Person wants to be called a cat, call him a cat. What's the big deal, right? The answer is when there's a war between good and evil and you were told not to use critical thinking, you cannot differentiate between good and evil because you stop using your brain, right? So, critical thinking is something that has become, honestly, like passé. It's like, don't use your brain. Moral relativism. There's no good and bad. There's no good and evil in the world. There's only different. It's crazy.